once again, welcome everyone to another session of our Danish English language news channel. And obviously, all the time, the guests that we try to get are some of the most brilliant, incisive analysts in the world. And I don't, at the cost of sounding repetitive, I want to try to be a little bit different at this time, because I truly, truly think that the man that we have with us today, Pepe Escobar, is one of the leading geopolitical analysts in the world. And it's just an incredible kind of delight and treat and honor for us to have him with us for our part one of our interview. Pepe Escobar, as I said, leading geopolitical analyst, contributes to various publications, including Asia Times, to Consortium News, and I'd also, on a personal note, like to say that he's a very dear friend of mine, and I think that's both, myself and other colleagues here in Pakistan, throughout the world, follow the works. When this man writes any column or piece, we follow it religiously. It is like a religious guide for many of us. So on geopolitics, that is, not on religion, on geopolitics. So Pepe, please welcome to the show.
Well, salam alaikum, everyone. It's an enormous pleasure for me to be with Junaid and with all of you. And my greetings are from Southeast Asia. I'm very far away from you today. I've been here for 7 months now, and I am a resident of Thailand. So I cannot go anywhere. I cannot travel anywhere. So all of us expats, we are totally grounded in Thailand at the moment. But there are worse places to be nowadays. Here is very, very good. It's very safe. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Although they don't know exactly what they are doing, they're a little bit paranoid, the government here, especially with foreigners or people who would cross the border from Laos, Myanmar, or Cambodia, etc. They don't want visitors from anywhere,
or from the Empire of Chaos. Yes,
especially from the Empire of Chaos, Junaid. Of course, there are no flights coming from the US at all.
Right.
So
yes. No, I can't imagine. Yes, right. No, wonderful. No, we are all in this same situation together, and yes, we, in fact, it is quite ironic, as I think you'll agree, that the tables have turned. We in the East do not want any of the folks coming from the West to come here. And they
from the West, and
there's phobia is now, I don't know, crumbling into kind of, well, at least these people don't have COVID, so maybe we can get them in, help them in, and so it's kind of been reversed in that sense. But Pepe, I wanted to start by just on a very light note, because we of course hosted you in Pakistan about 2 years ago for a conference in which we were really looking, we're really looking at the world system and changing the reorientation, in fact, of the world system towards the East, and also the kind of deconstruction of different epistemologies, different knowledge structures, and so on. And I know that, and many of us know, that your work really revolves around kind of a different vision of an alternative modernity that emanates from the Eurasian heartland, and especially from China. So just on a very light note, I mean, how did you find Pakistan, the conference, and so on?
I loved it. Pakistan is very special for me. I've been going to Pakistan more or less steadily since '97, I think. When I first did the Karakoram Highway, I was coming from Kashgar. I crossed. In fact, I didn't cross. I rented a Jeep, but we had to stop at the border, and then at the border, I went around a little bit by local bus. I stayed in the Hunza Valley, And then I went down by bus all the way to Islamabad. That was my first Karakoram trip. And this is something that I had in my mind for years, decades. It was a dream.
Yes.
You know, travel, the Trans-Siberian, the Karakoram, the Permian. Exactly. Absolutely. So this was way before CPAC, as many of you will remember, right? And of course, before 9/11, I was in Pakistan. And this is something that the people who were reading Asia Times at the time, they knew. I was with my photographer friend, Jason Florio, and we were on an absolutely crazy trip for over 2 months in Pakistan, tribal areas. We went to Chitral. Then we crossed in burqas. We crossed in burqas to Afghanistan, but the whole thing went completely, you know, downhill. We had to come back. Then we went to Tajikistan. Finally, we made it to the Panjshir Valley in one of Masood's helicopters. And then was another crazy trip to go from the Panjshir Valley to Faizabad to get a UN flight back to Peshawar. So it was something absolutely crazy.
Wow.
And
what
of course,
year was
when
this?
I was
Pepe,
back...
What year was this?
When
was this?
Yes, exactly. Because, this was in July, August 2001.
Oh,
so this was a few days before, a few weeks and days before 9/11. So then, and that's when Pakistan once again was in my personal story was very, very important as what was going on geopolitically. This was when I came back to Peshawar. My friend in Peshawar, I had made a very good network in Peshawar before. 2 or 3 times that I had been there before, in the late 90s and in the year 2000, and again in 2001.
Right.
And I was given a scoop. Right. And the scoop was that the Americans were planning to send a commando to Kandahar to snatch Osama bin Laden. And Musharraf at the time said, absolutely no way. If you do this, I'm going to have a civil war the next day here in my country.
Right.
And we published this story.
Wow.
The day we published this story on Asia Times was August 30th, just to give an idea. So this was 11 days before 9/11.
Wow.
So when 9/11 happened, a lot of people in the US, because then we were this very tiny website from Southeast Asia and Hong Kong, you know, suddenly everyone in the US was reading us because we had this scoop before anybody else.
Absolutely. Right.
Know.
I mean, and
on top of
it's clear that you, Pepe, were not part of the avalanche of Western journalists that came and were obsessed with Pakistan and Afghanistan after September 11th.
No, because I was in Pakistan before everything happened.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And my guys in Peshawar, they were amazing. They were feeding me amazing stories and scoops non-stop. Number one reason, because I was not American.
Right.
First of all, and number 2 reason is because I cultivated them. I listened to them. I asked questions all the time. I said, "Oh, take me to see, religious leaders, political leaders." So I was doing my homework all the time, and it paid off after 9/11 because 2 weeks after 9/11, I was back in Pakistan. Many of you will find this funny. I showed up in Karachi without a visa. Just like that. And immigration said, "What are you doing here? You don't have a visa." I said, "I know, but I was here before. You know who I am." The people at the the Ministry of Foreign Relations know who I am. This is an emergency. You know what's happening after 9/11. I had no time to get a visa because I was in Thailand. And the consulate in Bangkok said, look, you cannot get a visa from here. And I said, what if I try my luck at the border? They say, yeah, you have to try your luck. Because remember, at the time, you could get a 7-day visa at the border.
Yes.
But I think that the regulations changed in these 2 weeks after 9/11, so it became a very sensitive matter to get a visa.
Absolutely.
So I was very well, but I was very well treated at Karachi airport. I had to wait like 1 hour or so. They were deliberating, and they said, "Look, we'll give you a pass.
Yes,
we'll give you a 7-day pass, and then you have to go to the Ministry of Foreign Relations in Islamabad and get a proper visa." I said, "No problem," and that's exactly what I did. So then, before the end of September, I was already back in Pakistan, and then I was commuting between Islamabad and Peshawar. So and everything. Then I went to Afghanistan. Then I came back to Peshawar. So Pakistan, especially in this period between 2000 and 2001, was in my life all the time. You know.
Wow.
So
no, absolutely.
So
amazing.
I have personal history with Pakistan as well.
Yes. So it seems like they in Peshawar they fed you nice scoops and stories, and I think we fed you nice food. I hope so when you came.
Tell me about it, because I love Pakistani food.
Right.
Anyway, I had my favorite chaikanas in Peshawar and in Islamabad as well. You know, so you become, even if I don't speak the language, but you feel like a local. But you feel like a local, and you have local friends. They take care of you. You know, it's in Islamabad you have one of my favorite bookshops in the world.
Yes. Said books. Yes, absolutely. Very impressive. Absolutely.
Said, wow. I was in Said 2 years ago. I spent, I think I spent 5 or 6 hours over there.
Right. Easily. One can easily. Yes.
A stack of books that I cannot find anywhere else, only in Pakistan.
Yes.
You know? So
I'm very glad you said that. I say the same thing. Absolutely. That bookstore has books that, I mean, I actually go to that bookstore to see what the newest books out to recommend to my library to order. So yes.
Absolutely.
But Pepe,
so the trip Pepe, 2 years ago.
I wanted to ask you, Pepe. I mean, so this kind of your pre 9/11 kind of visits to Pakistan and to Afghanistan, and then afterwards coming back to Pakistan and Afghanistan. Now that we have gone past now in the 19th year of the so-called war on terrorism, and still the U.S. troops now are trying to perhaps gradually withdraw, because it seems like now they're only there to protect Chinese investment in Afghanistan without any other role except for projecting American power, of course, and to subvert. We'll get into that later. So subvert the BRI. But beyond that, any specific insights? We'll get into the larger geopolitics later, but any specific insights into what your thoughts were when the United States at that point then decided to invade Afghanistan, and what was going on in the border regions, and what the Pashtuns were saying. So any particular kind of insights you want to give on that at that time?
Well, this is it's very, very interesting, because many things running in parallel, you know, like we were following almost every day. I don't know if you remember, there was a press conference at the Afghan embassy in Islamabad. So we used to go there practically every day to get the Taliban point of view, right?
Right.
At the same time, we had the information from American intelligence sources. Right. We already knew something very important at the time. It was something that was discussed at the time it was G8, was not G7. At the G8 in Genova, in Italy. The G8 was in July. And at the G8, and this we knew about this I cannot tell you the source. I will tell you this was an European source, and this European source was saying, look, the Americans more or less were telling us that they have a sort of intervention ready for Afghanistan for October. So we already knew that this was pre-planned. So I was struck, in fact, when I got that information in Peshawar in late August about this commando going to snatch Osama bin Laden in Kandahar. I was thinking, why they want to do it now and why they're not waiting for October. So so this was one element. The other element, which was very important, was some of the things that Masood told me in this interview. This interview was in the Panjshir Valley, at his place at the Panjshir, the day that he left to go to what would be where he was coordinating a very important battle against the Taliban. He went to Khwaja Bahaduddin.
Ahmed Shah Massoud. Right. Yes.
Exactly. So Masood told me that, look, you have to pay attention to this aggregation or this confluence of interests between the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and Pakistan, ISI. So this was very tricky because, of course, I had my sources in Pakistan. My sources were more towards the foreign ministry than ISI. And obviously, we could not establish 100% with smoking gun.
Which side was telling the truth?
Exactly. Exactly. This was extremely, and the information that we had about Al Qaeda was that in Kandahar, basically the people around Osama, they were more or less isolated, and there were rifts within the Taliban leadership already on how we're going to deal with Osama. Some were in favor of, okay, why don't we hand them to the Americans if they have proof that he committed 9/11? Obviously, the Americans have zero proof about everything. So and this will never happen. And of course, they would never abide to follow a directive coming directly from the Taliban, right? And then in the middle of all this, there was that famous intimation by the U.S. State Department to Musharraf. Either you're with us or without us, and if you don't help us, we're gonna throw you back to the Middle Ages.
Bomb you to the Stone Age, as Musharraf wrote it.
To the Stone Age, exactly. So you had all this information. In fact, it was a non-stop crossfire, and it was very complicated, especially for us foreigners to see exactly what was going on. So I was trying to follow. I was trying to follow three different leads as well. First of all, understand what the Taliban were up to. Understand the real position of Al Qaeda inside Afghanistan. Understand the position of Pakistan in terms of diplomacy and in terms of intelligence, ISI as well.
That's right.
And of course, understand what we already knew what the Americans were up to. The Americans had already decided that they were going to bomb Afghanistan in the afternoon of 9/11. We already knew that. We didn't know when. And in fact, it started. In fact, it started earlier than we thought. It started, if I remember well, started on October 9th, if I remember very well. I remember because I was in Peshawar that they started bombing it. So and obviously then and then I was concentrated into crossing into Afghanistan, which was an extremely complicated operation. I tried to go via Kurdistan,
Right. Oh.
No way. Absolutely impossible. So I had to wait in the shower. Not me. We were like 1,000 of us. We were waiting in Peshawar for the border to dissolve, and then we could cross into Afghanistan. And that's exactly what happened. The day the border disappeared, we crossed.
Wow. Wow.
You know.
Yes.
But it was very complicated, because there were too many variables. It was very hard on the ground to know what was going on. If we, of course, if we were in a think tank in Washington, you have access to information from all over. You know, but in our case,
you have access to information, and of course, Pepe, if you're a think tank in Washington, you also manufacture information. You concoct information that serve your agenda.
Exactly. You're right, Jonah. You manufacture information, and we were dealing with a genuine raw article every day. You know, and. I was very lucky, for instance, that I had very good fixers in Islamabad and in Peshawar. And when I crossed into Afghanistan, by accident, I found an absolutely amazing fixer in Kabul. This was the guy who took care of me in Kabul and while I was there. And then, of course, what happened afterwards was absolutely extraordinary as well. I don't know if many of you remember that by November, it was impossible to leave Kabul because there were no flights anywhere. So we could not leave Afghanistan even if we wanted. So I was concocting with my local sources. Okay, let's go to Hazara land to see what's going on with the Hazaras. And then our Hazaras contacts start thinking that we had the suitcases full of cash, just like the U.S. Special Forces, and we didn't go because it would cost a bloody fortune, and we couldn't afford it. So Plan B, Plan B became even better than Plan A. You know what happened? We met a warlord from Jalalabad in Kabul, and he was going back to Jalalabad with his crew. Excellent. And with our minimalistic Urdu, we convinced them to take us along.
Okay.
Obviously, exchanging a few George Washingtons, we were part of the convoy. We were part of the convoy back from Kabul to Jalalabad. And that was our luck. You know why? Because this is when the Americans started to bomb Tora Bora. So we arrived at Tora Bora practically the day that the Americans start bombing Tora Bora. Believing at the time,
which is a name, Tora Bora.
We were there.
Yeah. I was saying, Pepe, Tora Bora was the name that every American. Right. I was saying, Pepe, that Tora Bora was the name that every American will know, but they will have no idea where Afghanistan is. But they remember we're bombing Tora Bora.
No. They probably think that Tora Bora is in Hawaii.
Right.
But at the time, Junaid, nobody knew at the time, and this is something that we learned much later, that Osama al-Zawahiri, his Yemeni bodyguards, and like a mini expedition of between 10 and 15 people, they had already left Tora Bora. They hiked, they trekked 50 kilometers in the foothills of the Himalayas. And they went, do you know where they went? Parashinar in Pakistan.
Wow. Yeah.
So this was an amazing story because I had already written about Parashinar before because there was in Parachinar, I think it was in October or end of October or early November. There was a story with Parachinar involving what's the name of that famous Afghan commander that he was killed after I forgot his name now. And his base was Parachinar because he was trying to mount an operation to go after Osama al-Zawahiri.
Right. Okay.
So,
right.
But the thing is,
yes.
But
Pepe,
but
just
the
sorry
crazy
to
thing,
Pepe, sorry to cut you off. Just and just an assessment, kind of from that period and all of these amazing kind of insights you were able to gain through your traveling. And does it surprise you right now that the United States still has not been able to conquer, defeat, control Afghanistan? Does it surprise you?
Of course not. Well, first of all, among many others, we had done our historical homework before.
Right.
So I had studied the whole history of Afghanistan as the graveyard of empires. What happened with the British Empire, especially in more modern terms, how they defeated the Soviet Union, you name it. And even reading accounts, Soviet accounts of people, people embedded with Soviet forces during the jihad in the 1980s and all that. So if you study all that, you know, no, obviously this is unconquerable. First of all, they don't even understand. They don't even understand, apart from never understanding history, which is a characteristic of, let's say, between commas, American intel. They don't understand local ethnic backgrounds, local ethnic particularity. I'm sure you probably had like 2 or 3 people inside the State Department that ever heard about the Pashtunwali code.
Right, exactly.
You know, they didn't know about it. They didn't know shit about all this. So of course, of course, we already knew that the thing will go downhill immediately. Immediately. But this is something that obviously later in subsequent trips, I understood why they were in Afghanistan. The many reasons why the empire had to be in Afghanistan. And this is something we can discuss later on. It has to do, of course, with monitoring Russia, China, with monitoring the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, with having a base in the intersection between Central Asia and South Asia, enabling what I called later on the Afghan opium rat line, which is something that Seymour Hersh wrote about it. And then later on, I wrote about it, also quoting Seymour Hersh as well, but also quoting my own research.
And Pepe, as you know very well,
this is something that we learned later on. This is the real motivation. For the Americans never to let go, even if they were defeated on the ground. There's no question about it. But my geopolitical bet is that the Pentagon and the deep state will never leave Afghanistan. They will leave something over there because they need it. It's part of the new great game to have 1, 2, 3, 4, as many bases as we can. Not only Bagram, but also our lily pads scattered around Afghanistan.
Precisely. So even if a Trump or any other character wants to call for some withdrawal, etc., there will always be the Syrian motto: no, we will keep 200 troops, some special forces. We will have a presence there to keep a check. And as you you correctly say, this is Afghanistan. You know, this is in the corner of Russia, China, Iran. I mean, so you're absolutely correct. I mean, you know, it's like when Trump said we're staying in Iraq just to keep an eye on Iran, an eye on Iran. So you know, openly admitting it. And you're very right. I mean, it's the same situation in Afghanistan today. But just very quickly,
please. this is deep state. Sorry to cut you off, but there is a delay. So sometimes I cut you off because of the delay. Just 30 seconds. Yeah, it doesn't. This is bipartisan. The deep state establishes where you have your empire of bases, where are the main bases, where are the lily pads, how they interconnect, and why they are there. And this applies to Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Persian Gulf in general, Northern Africa, now South America, Colombia, especially because of the regime change operation in Venezuela, you name it. So this is not going to change.
Absolutely. And of course, in East Asia, all of East Asia, Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, throughout. So, I mean, yes, absolutely. This rim of kind of what the deep state, the U.S. national security state wants to keep throughout the world of its bases and projecting power. This is not going to go away. You know, whether it's a declining empire, a wounded tiger, it will be still not equally, but even perhaps more violent and vicious and ferocious in trying to maintain some facade of that empire. So there's no question about that, Pepe. Pepe, very quickly, and
I would say,
sorry, go ahead.
Yes.
No.
I was just complimenting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, Pepe, I was just so we can just complete this region in this sense for this interview, and then the next one we can in part 2 go into the broader kind of what's going on with China, Russia, and the new Cold War waged by exceptionalistan, as you put it, or the Empire of Chaos. But for now in the region, you clearly have been following what's been going on with India. You know, this kind of outlier nation. You know, we spoke about BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation Organization, all of this stuff, and India clearly has for a while now been recruited by the deep state in the U.S. as a frontline state in its confrontational and belligerent approach towards China. There's been no doubt about that. So India, and of course now we are talking about a very different India itself internally under the Modi regime and what they're doing in Kashmir and so on. And they're, sometimes I think it's very funny, the irony of the past 18 years in the war on terror, when you would constantly hear the mantra from Washington, D.C. telling Pakistan, do more. You're not doing enough in Afghanistan and in your northern areas. I suspect that the deep state is going to say the same thing now to India, to New Delhi, to do more for us in the Indo-Pacific Command. Help us more in containing China. When really, what can India do, really? It can try, but I'd like your thoughts on it, on what's going on now with regards to India.
Look, this is something that I have also discussed with Indian diplomats, very, very high level, very well educated, who know South Asia and know the West as well.
Yeah,
who think that it's a completely suicidal kamikaze policy by New Delhi under Modi to be okay. We're gonna be an equal partner in the Indo-Pacific strategy. No, you're gonna be a vassal state in the Indo-Pacific strategy. This is completely crazy. If New Delhi thinks that they're gonna get special benefits from the deep state, because once again, this is a deep state policy. This is part of the national security strategy, the three top existential threats: China, Russia, and Iran. So they are using India in the Indo-Pacific strategy and the Quad alongside Australia and Japan for a renewed containment of China. Everybody knows that. You don't even need to be in a think tank to know that. What baffles me very well informed people in India itself is why New Delhi would subject itself to something like this, like, in fact, betting all their chips on this side of the roulette, when they have the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the BRICS, which are their part alongside Russia and China. The overall strategy that is being discussed by the main players across Eurasia of Eurasia integration, you name it. But it baffles me, in fact.
Yes.
There's no explanation. And my Indian friends also have they don't have a rational explanation for it. They see it in terms of the internal structure of the BJP, some fantasy that Modi has in his mind that Trump loves him. You name it. There are a lot of different variables. But in terms of Indian national interests, they're shooting them. In fact, they're stabbing themselves in their own back with that. They don't even try to do a balancing act anymore, which is something that Putin and Xi, during those BRIC meetings, Putin and Xi were taking Modi aside, and they have a RIC meeting, Russia, India, China, and they would tell Modi, look, this is what we're offering you in terms of Eurasian integration, closer integration with the BRICS, more investment, you name it. And this is what the Americans are promising you. It's up to you. It's your decision. But look, we are presenting you the facts. And Modi chose Indo-Pacific and Quad and containment of China. So, well, they will regret it in terms of in trade and economic terms. And I would say the most important variable in terms of trade and economy, it's the RCEP treaty that is going to be signed. It was going to be signed this year, but because of COVID, it was postponed. It will be signed next year. They have a draft treaty as well by everybody, the ASEAN 10, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, China, South Korea, etc. And the only ones who are not going to sign are India. So they are cutting themselves off from the #1 trade deal in the world. How stupid is that?
That's right. I mean, it seems like, and Pepe, we'll conclude this first part of the interview on this, but it seems pretty clear that that Modi has linked this larger project of Hindutva, which again, you're putting it so correctly, because it's very similar to the Zionist project itself. These are suicidal projects in some ways, what they're doing. So Hindutva has linked itself to the Anglo-Zionist kind of project so closely that it doesn't even recognize that for its own national interests, it is absolutely suicidal. And internally, of course, what's going on, as you know very well, with regard to in India itself, against the Muslims and others, and in Kashmir, I mean, which is he's just trying to replicate what is going on in the occupied territories.
Exactly. It was a pity that I wanted to go to Kashmir 2 years ago when we met. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. It's on my list of travels for 2020 before COVID. Kashmir was on my list because I wanted to go to Srinagar first and then go to Leh. I am particularly very fond of Ladakh for many reasons. Most of them geological and Tibetans as well, because I studied Tibetan Buddhism a long time ago. So Ladakh is very important. So, but I wanted to see the geopolitics of Kashmir and Ladakh on the spot. So I hope that I'll be able to do it next year, and then go back to Kashmir in Pakistan as well, so I can compare on the ground what's going on the ground on both sides. So everything is postponed. Hey, Jazz, man, so good to see you. Fantastic.
I said that at the conclusion of part 1, and even inshallah at part 2, we will have Dr. Ijaz Akram with us as well. So I wanted him to say hello.
That would be great. Maybe we could have the three of us talking next time. What do you think?
It would be a trilogue.
Yes. Next time.
Fantastic. Really looking forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Very pleased to see you today.
Thank you so much, Pepe. It's been such a delight and treat and honor as always, my dear friend.
Well, I wish I was with you in Lahore, so I envy you profoundly.
No, inshallah soon. We will do that soon. All right,
we'll do it soon.
Take care.
Okay,
Take
thank
care
you.
of yourself. Keep safe. And,
take care.
We will
take care, all of you. Thank you. It was an enormous pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Pepe. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.